this the best 40-foot sports cruiser money can buy? Well, Fairline has certainly chucked the kitchen sink at the Targa 40, all new naval architecture from the design powerhouse that is J&J, and brand new exterior and interior design from their in-house team. It's got some power as well, 760 horsepower altogether from a pair of 6-cylinder Volvo Pentas, and it's got my favourite drives as well, stern drives, so it should be good fun when you chuck it into some corners. Now, some eyebrows were raised at pricing when it was launched back in Dusseldorf, but we're going to get into all of that in much more detail later on. For now, I want to find out what this thing is like to drive out on the water, get beneath its skin, on deck and inside the interior, and answer the question, for a 40-foot sports cruiser, is this currently the best you can get? Let's find out, shall we? I'm Jack Haines. Welcome to YachtBuyer. Right, let's get into what it's like to drive then, shall we? Because this is the first time we've driven it. We're one of the first to drive it. All well and good, looking good on a standard Dusseldorf, but what is it like when you're out on the water? Well, I have quite high expectations. Fairline build a very good sports cruiser. J&J build a very good hull. So I do expect it to handle very nicely, especially, as I said, because it's got stern drives. And instantly you can feel the agility. It really leans over nicely, but it's always very controlled. But I tell you what, it is very, very nice to swing from side to side. The angle of lean is just fabulous, addictive almost. You can really carry some power into the turns. These are the largest engines. You can have a smaller set of D6s. I really don't think it's worth doing that, to be honest. These aren't much more than the smaller engines, these twin 380s, and they give it really lovely performance. Gets out of the hole nicely, tops out at about 33 knots, maybe a whisker over, and then if you want to cruise, I mean, we're doing 30 knots now, and actually it's pretty efficient at 30 knots. In terms of range when you're on the plane, it's probably most efficient at this speed, about 215 nautical miles. 25 knots, which does feel nice and relaxed, you're looking at about 200 nautical miles. So not huge range. It's got 950 litre fuel capacity, but it certainly feels very comfortable tracking along at that speed. But if you love driving your boat, if you don't just want to sit on autopilot, you will really enjoy driving this. If you engage the driving experience, if you like driving it in a big sea, downwind, following sea, having a bit of fun, it's fab. It's so grippy, reassuring, but you really can get a nice lean on, and it's so quick from lock to lock. Yeah, it feels really good. Doesn't feel like a 40-footer, I have to say. It feels like a, the scaled up F33, and J&J did the hull for that as well, and that is a fabulous boat to drive. I'm thrilled that they've managed to bring some of that DNA into this. Let's just settle down for a moment though and talk about cruising. Let's be honest, that's what you're going to be doing a lot of on this thing. What happens when you just pull the engines back and settle at about 25 knots? Well, sound levels are 75 to 80 decibels, not super quiet, but that's not that surprising. It's completely open at the back. You've got the engines down under the deck there, so this does create a bit of an echo chamber. Worth pointing, we've got the roof closed as well, so it's not super quiet, but it's fine. And a lot of that noise is actually sea noise. It's not all engine noise. You have got the sea rushing under the boat, which is quite nice. We're on the water, we want to hear that sort of thing. And it does relax into a very nice 25 knot cruise. And actually when it's a bit calmer, I mean, out in the Solent, there's probably a metre and a half sea running out there. We're in Southampton water to film this bit, and it's much calmer. And here I can sit back, my view is good, I can slide the seat as well, so I can get nice and close to the helm, and there, everything falls to hand really nicely. I don't have to reach out to reach the throttle. The wheel could be a little bit close to me, but I'm being very picky there. This feels really nice, and the view of all the instruments is great. It's a very clean helm. You've got your twin MFDs up there. They're touchscreen, but I like that they've put a control next to the throttle, so I can lean back and I can flick between the screens without having to lean right forward and touch them. And I've got this nice upright Volvo Pentascreen as well. This is a really clever bit of design. It's the standard Volvo Pentascreen, but they fitted it upright rather than flush to the dash. So I can sit back and I can see my fuel economy, the revs, all the engine information is really clearly displayed. I'm not having to lean forward to see what the engines are doing. The view out isn't quite as good. They could really do with lifting up this seat a few inches, and as an option you can have an electric bolster. So you could push a button and raise yourself up, which is what I feel like I want to do. I just haven't quite got the height to be really comfortable, especially when it chops up. I find myself wanting to stand and there isn't a bolster function, so that feels a little bit awkward. So yeah, raising this seat would make a big difference. With that done though, this is a really lovely cruising environment. I've got my navigator next to me. They've got access to a nice window here so they can get a bit of ventilation. You've got a very simple run of switches that are under the steering wheel, which I thought might feel a bit strange. They might get in the way, but they don't actually. You can see them really easily. It's very easy to flick on things like the wipers, the lights, all of that sort of thing. I really like this arrangement. However, it could do with a few cup holders. There are no cup holders around here. There are a couple over there. They're very shallow, so holding bottles and things like that isn't very easy in this Helm, though there is a really good tray at knee level where you can put phones, sunglasses, that sort of thing. But some deeper storage around here would be good. Let's talk back to driving though, that's what we want to talk about, isn't it? Open it up a bit. We've got 35 knots earlier on, two-way run, 30 knots the other way, so yeah, you're looking at sort of 32, 33 knots flat out. Perfectly fine performance for a boat of this size and style, but I've been impressed with how it's dealt with both the downwind stuff and the upwind stuff. You have to drop it back down to about 15 knots when we were going upwind today in that chop, but it just gets on with it, and it's a nice dry ride as well. In fact, I'm going to head upwind now, put a nice tight turn. The view around could be a bit better. It's a beautiful looking boat. It's really, really sleek, but it does mean you've got a low window line. So it can be quite hard to see out when you pull hard turns like that. You will have to get your crew to check and look around and make sure there's nothing in your blind spots, because this is quite low. It's a big glass area though, so it's nice and bright in here. The other thing I have noticed, it's a choppy, windy day. This roof is nice and quiet. Often these can be really rattly, they catch the wind, they're annoying. Not the case here, everything feels really very solid. Upwind, it doesn't slice through the waves, but it absorbs them nicely. It goes over them nice and comfortably. There's no slamming or crashing really. It's a comfortable ride. Again, J&J have done good work with the hull shape. Let's do something a little bit childish and launch it, shall we? I've got it in single lever mode on the throttles. We are just in gear, and we will send it home and see what happens. I've got the trim assist on, so that should be working the legs and the blades to get us over the hump and running on a nice flight attitude as possible. This is where I just feel the need to stand up a bit. Just as it's getting over the hump, we're at 20 knots now, getting into its stride, bows flattening off, and now I can sit back a bit more, and I'll keep it pinned because we're now up to 30 knots. I wasn't timing that, but that didn't take very long at all. And now we can settle back into that 25 knot cruise that just does feel so easy. Talking of the trim, in this calmer conditions, the trim assist works really well. When we're in the rougher stuff, I felt much more comfortable doing it manually. It just wasn't quite getting the bow down low enough for me, and that's why it's great that you can control it manually if you want to. People may ask, why doesn't everyone just use trim assist? Well, there are occasions where it's not quite getting it right for the conditions, and the fact that I can control the blades and the legs individually gives you a lot of variation on a stern drive boat. It's another thing I really like. You haven't just got the trim of the blades or the trim tabs, you've also got the trim of the legs, so you can really fine-tune the running attitude depending on the conditions, who's driving, whether you're standing or sitting. It just gives you that extra bit of flexibility, which I always really, really enjoy. Yeah, and it responds really nicely to the throttle. I really do think you want these bigger engines. I think you'd miss the horsepower of the smaller engines, and they just have this lovely mid-range welly. When you drop the throttle, you get a good little burst of power. Very enjoyable. One of the major benefits of the Targa 40 design, although it's not unique, we've seen this before, is having this big canvas roof, and it is big. You get a very large aperture when it's open, and people say, why would you want to drive with your head poking out the top? Well, I'll tell you why. On a nice day like this, it's lovely to be able to stand up, get the wind in your hair, and if you're doing a hard turn, you can see much better all round standing up like this with the roof open than you can having to duck down and look around like this. And the other thing you can do on the Targa 40 is pop this step down, and then you can get really high. It's not a particularly warm day in the Solent today, it's about 13 degrees. But even here it's quite pleasant being able to do this. Obviously in the Mediterranean, at the end of a long day when it's maybe more like 20-25 degrees, and you want to get home in low light, sticking your head above the windscreen, that's really, really useful. And it also means you can really enjoy the boat's handling. You can feel it pivoting beneath you. You have fantastic all-round view. You really are in touch with the elements. It's fabulous. You get the best of both worlds. You can be exposed, or you can sit back down again when you're sick of your fringe being torn off, and you can just, it's as if there's no wind at all. It's fantastic. It's so much to be said for this design. Lots of boats this size are using that walk-around design, the Axopar Saxdor style, but they're either fully enclosed or you've got a T-top. This really is a very good compromise. Very, very well protected, but if you want to stand up and catch the breeze and get a much better view, you can. But this also really comes into its own inside the marina. So let's head back in there and see what it's like at slow speed. Now, if you're considering buying a sports cruiser like this, I imagine slow speed manoeuvring is something you're concerned about. This is likely a boat that's being run by a couple of people. You'll be running it yourself, crewing it yourself, parking it yourself. So let's have a bit of a look at what it's like at slow speed. This boat's a twin stern drive boat, as I've said, so you've got twin throttles. This one's also got the optional side power proportional bow thruster. It's a cost option that I definitely go for. The joystick is another 15 grand on top of that. Debatable whether you really need that. If you've learned twin throttles, then I think you'll probably feel perfectly comfortable using those in the bow thruster. But if you're obviously new to a boat of this size, then it's very intuitive to use the joystick. Wherever you push the joystick, the boat should go. I myself learnt on twin throttles, so generally feel a bit more comfortable using those. But you can flip between the two. It reacts really positively to the throttles at these slow speeds. There's plenty of bite when you knock it in and out of gear. The steering is lovely and light, so you can really easily move those legs from side to side and adjust your angle. And of course, if you do need to quickly just tweak the bow thrust is great, and it's proportional, so it won't cut out either. And this is where the sunroof comes in as well, because now I can look up, I can get myself a really nice view, just a bit better than when you're sitting down. The view out when you're sitting down is fine, but when you're doing this slow speed stuff, I much prefer to be able to stand like this, and I can spot the pontoon from up here. I can still really easily reach the controls. I can see my crew, I can hear my crew. And it is very controllable. It's quite a kind day. There's a bit of wind, but I haven't used the throttles there. Sorry, I haven't used the joystick there. I've just used the throttles and the bow thruster, but she behaved very nicely there. And this is where I think the sunroof is, if anything, even more important. I think it works really nicely for this exact use. Right, before we start the tour, now is a great time to subscribe to the YachtBuyer channel. Hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll be notified every time we upload a sea trial like this one. Right then, the engines are off, the roof is back, and we can commence the tour and take a closer look at these deck spaces. The cockpit especially is such an impressive part of the Targa 40's design. But let's start right back here, where we have an optional hydraulic bathing platform underneath my feet. It's a £25,000 option, which is a lot of money for a platform that's only that big, and it's not designed to launch a tender. It's really just to give you a nice way in and out of the water, because the tender lives in here, either a 2.3 metre inflated Zodiac or 2.7 metre deflated, but there is space in there for a torpedo outboard and somewhere to charge it, plus there's a compressor so you can blow the tender up from in there, which is quite useful. No, if it was me, I'd forget the 25 grand on that and I'd put that money towards the star of the show, which is over here. Now this is the star of the show, the drop down balcony. This is another option. It's 30 grand, hence why you might want to put the money towards this, because for me, this just transforms the way the cockpit works. And yes, it's expensive, but there's some very good engineering going on here. As it folds up, the railing glides out of the balcony itself so that it connects up to this railing here, so you have a seamless joint as you walk your way up the side deck. There's also a step in here, which I'll show you in a moment, which helps you up onto the side deck. But it's not just the balcony, which opens up this space so well, and with the seating over here angling out, really points you towards the water. They thought about all this seating as well. These are both two-way backrests, so I can flip this one that way to create a recliner, and then you can do the same on this side. But once you've done that, this then ratchets up and it stops in a few different positions, but you can pop it up like that. And then when the balcony is down, this becomes the best spot on the boat. I absolutely love this area. You're overlooking the water, you're close to the back of the boat, lovely view out, and you can have the kids swimming off, you can tie your toys off really easily. Yeah, this is fabulous, and it's just space that you wouldn't have without the balcony. It's amazing how a single thing like this can make such a difference to the way the boat feels. And let me just show you what happens when you put it up. So it's all controlled from here. You see the railing is moving out now. It's pushing up and out. So then it gets to the top, it's connected with the guardrail running along the side deck. But then you can drop this down and you have a step to easily make your way up and forward. And moving forward on the Targa 40 is really quite easy. You've got this lovely big guardrail to hold on to. The rails are nice and high. It's 1 foot in front of the other. The side decks aren't all that wide, but it's fine to move forward even if you've got quite big feet. And much like the cockpit, they've put some thought into this foredeck area as well. There's not a huge amount you can do with a boat this size. They've included things like this ratchet system, much like in the cockpit, so you can set this at a few different heights on both sides, and they've got the same right forward as well, so you can create a little couple's bench right forward on the bow, a nice place to sit in the evening or if you're moving along very slowly. And yeah, this is a great place just to come and catch some rays if you're into that sort of thing. Let's head back into the cockpit though and check out the rest of that space. Into the cockpit then, and you have positioned here very centrally, which is convenient, a really decent wet bar. At the back of it there's some drain storage just to chuck bits and bobs into, but you know it's going to drain out if anything's wet in there. Underneath you have a decent sized sink and a grill too that washes very easy into the sink, so if you need to clean it that should be pretty simple. Underneath here, this is where the fridge is. Now these could be beefed up because these popped open a few times. That's a very weak magnet. The bin has got a nice clip on it, that works really well. I think they could do with putting that on there. And also this section here is where you've got some storage for crockery and cups and things like that. These magnets just aren't quite up to it when the boat is out on the water. Now over here we have another good bit of Fairline innovation. We've seen it before, but it works so well. The table is out, as you can see, but as an option, you have the cantilever system where it will disappear completely behind the seating. So if you're on passage or if you just want a bit more space to stretch out if you're not eating, you can get rid of the table completely, which works very nicely indeed. Moving forward, we can take in this vast sunroof aperture once again. It really does transform the boat. It feels so open when this roof is open, and I love these spaces on sports cruisers like this. They're a really nice place just to keep the skipper company when the boat's on passage, but even when you're stationary, because you can lean any way, you can sit up here, talk to the people who are sitting down the dinette and talk to the people over there as well. You have a lovely view from up here. I really like this position, and when the boat's moving along it's incredibly well protected. And there are some bits in the helm that I wanted to cover in a bit more detail as well, because what this boat has got is Fairline's proprietary software. So you have all Fairline skinned graphics here to show you things like tankage, alarms. You have running information as well when the boat's moving along. You've got the speed there, you've got your RPM and fuel levels and all that sort of thing, but it looks really nice, and you can have it through this smaller screen as well, and you have all the same functionality through all three screens, but it's nice to be able to flip between the two. This is a slightly strange area. You've got the start, stop, ignition, things like that. You've got your chain counter down here, and you've also got your control for the spotlight. This could really do with something to hold it up though, because when you're using the chain counter you're having to sort of juggle too many things. That's a weird omission for Fairline, who are usually really hot on that sort of stuff. Aside from that, the helm is really good. Right, let's head downstairs. You do pay a premium for the Targa 40 over many of its European rivals anyway, but the moment you come down here you can see and feel that quality all over the place. It is beautifully executed down here, and what a big space it is. It's much bigger than you might expect you get looking at the boat from the outside with that sleek profile, and a lot of that to do with how much natural light is coming in. Huge windows on both sides, skylights overhead and good headroom too. A nice big blind as well, so if you want some privacy with the door closed, you can pull the blind down to do that. But there are loads of touch points from this boat that you see elsewhere higher up in the Fairline range, which is always really nice. The gloss walnut is about a £10,000 option, worth every penny in my opinion, because it elevates everything so well. This beautiful fluting here is the same as you see on the bigger boats. This wonderful table that opens up also drops down with infills to create another berth if you want to, and this is a typical Fairline touch, having all the glassware in this dedicated cupboard, backlit, held in place. There's underlighting here on this marble top. It's just gorgeous. It really is. It feels like a very, very special boat to move around on inside. The galley space. Now, there are some rivals in this sector where you don't have to have a galley like the Sea-Line C390. You can remove the galley completely to give yourself a bigger bathroom. But I think a lot of people will want some sort of galley facility down here, so you have an extra fridge, quite a big fridge under the counter on this side, storage down on this side, and then a nice big sink, and they've got a chopping board underneath the sink cover there, which is always quite useful. The microwave is tucked up in the corner on that side, and then funnily enough they've got lovely catches which they could do with out there in the wet bar, and again you've just got more storage up here. You can see more glasses all held in place so they shouldn't rattle around when the boat is moving. And just note the nice piece of glass above the galley as well. Great for your view out, and it also means you can ventilate above the hob, which is always very useful. It's not a huge area, but it's very practical. Right, let's head forward and have a look at the owner's cabin. I'm perched here on the edge of the bed alluringly so I don't block the view, because I want you to be able to see this lovely cabin. It's beautifully finished. I sound like a Stoke record, but it really is. The detail in this cabin is lovely. Very high quality fit out throughout. Nice big double bed. It's set quite high, but they have got steps on either side, so it's pretty easy to get in and out. And they've got nice things like having switches down here so you can control the lights from bed. A nice tray for your valuables as well. There's a TV mounted up on the wall over on this side, and they've even worked in a little bureau with a mirror and some spots for jewellery that you can use if you sit on the bed like I am. So that works very nicely indeed. Headroom is pretty good. There's not a huge amount of space at the end of the bed to get changed. Two of you changing in here would be a bit of a squeeze, but headroom certainly not an issue. And there's some great storage. Nice big void under here for cases and shoes and that sort of thing. That's how you've got the cushions for the infill in the saloon in it at the moment, and there's a hanging locker over there too. And this has direct access to the only bathroom on board, so that is a private entrance. You've also got the day head entrance, so just one bathroom, but a good sized bathroom. You've only one bathroom on board, but that's fine. It's got a separate shower cubicle that's a good size. Storage is decent, and yeah, there's plenty of space in here. And when I'm talking about the doors, this is a really nice high quality touch. You haven't actually got any catches. They're just magnets, so there's nothing protruding. When you shut the door, it just clicks like a magnet. Pop it open. It's really, really nice, and those door handles are gorgeous as well. Right, let's head to the guest cabin. Well, here it is. This is the guest cabin, and boats in this sector do these cabins in slightly different ways. The Beneteau GT41, you walk down the middle and you have the berths on either side, which gives you quite a lot of space, but doesn't convert as easily into a double, which is an option on this at the moment. They are close together, but they are singles, but you can put them together so you have a big double down here. And actually the Galleon 405 HTS does have its own private bathroom in this cabin, which is a nice touch, though it's unlikely to be as finished as well as this. Again, the finish is beautiful. It's the option to have this storage here. It's a sofa as standard, but I think the storage is quite good to give your guests somewhere extra to store their kit. There's a hanging locker there, but it's always useful to have a bit more storage. And I like the way they've mounted the TV as well. It pivots around, as you can see, so it can face the bed, but it also pushes right up against this bulkhead when you're not using it out of the way, which is very nice. Headroom, as you can see, not great over the beds, but there is enough space to sit up and read if you want to. And if I move forward and into the main lobby area, you can see here there's standing headroom for somebody at 6 foot tall. Pretty nice. For a 40-foot sports cruiser, engine room access is positively capacious. Look how easy it is to get down here. This rises up on a hydraulic ram at the touch of a button. There's a nice ladder here, so yeah, getting down to inspect the engine space is very easy. Headroom disappears a bit as you move over this side to get to the battery boxes, but day-to-day stuff, very easy indeed. Around the engines, the fuel tanks are mounted here in front of me, and their filters are, so you can get to those very easily. And this isn't the only access point either, because there's a hatch here as well, so you can easily pop your head inside if this is down, just to check everything's okay. Fender baskets up here, which is always nice to see, and this is a really deep storage well that's drained as well, so you can put wet kit in there and know that it's all going to drain off. Very sensible, practical stuff, as we've come to expect from Fairline. There are a few comments about the Targa 40's price after its launch at Dusseldorf. As is often the case with hull number 1, which this boat is, it's loaded with pretty much every optional extra on the list. The base price with the smallest engines is £550,000 ex VAT, and the standard spec includes things like sea-deck flooring, VHF and autopilot, saloon TV with Fusion audio, and interceptor trim tabs. For me, must-have cost options would include things like the bow thruster, the generator, the twin 12-inch Garmin MFD upgrade at the Helm Station, and in the cockpit you've got to have the balcony, the folding cockpit table, and the grille and fridge. And depending where you're going to keep it, you'd want heating or air conditioning. And it's a pricey option, but the Seakeeper 4 will make life a lot more comfortable if you plan to spend time on anchor. A realistic UK spec with most of the toys you want will set you back around £645,000 ex VAT. You'll need to add 60 grand to that for a med spec boat though, which includes things like the larger engines, a generator, air conditioning and the passerelle. Whichever way you cut it, the 40 is more expensive than its rivals from the high volume European yards and is more in line with its closest rival, the Princess 340, which is built in a very similar way. To answer the question posed at the beginning of this video, is this the best 40-foot sports cruiser you can buy right now? Well, I'd say if you're comfortable with paying the premium over most of its rivals, then yes, I think it is. Is it perfect? No, there's work to be done, especially with the geometry of the helm, but I think everything else is absolutely superb. Look at it for a start. I think it is probably the best looking 40-foot boat on the market right now. And then there's all the space you can enjoy on board. It's more than skin deep. It's got a very clever cockpit, beautifully finished and spacious interior, and it does the business when it comes to performance and handling as well. The Fairline Targa 40 is back, and it's better than ever. Thank you very much for watching my review of the Fairline Targa 40. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a thumbs up if you did. And do you agree with me? Is this the best looking 40-footer you can buy right now? If it isn't, let me know which boat you choose in the comments below. And if you like your Fairline content, we've got something pretty special coming to the channel very soon. 3 boats, 2 guest presenters, Nick Burnham or Aquaholic and James Bark from boats.co.uk are going to help me test 3 Fairlines side by side. Definitely not one to miss, so hit subscribe and make sure you don't. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haines. This is YachtBuyer.